What is up, everybody? Today we're bringing you another video on our Master X Master series. Today we're going to be covering runes, how they work, where to get them, and why they are important. So to start off, we're just going to go over here to our masters, and we're going to go right to our nodes page. So this has been a topic of discussion because it doesn't explain how this works very well in the game. It shows you how to equip nodes, and that's really about it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to unequip all of these. Just like that. Now, see how we have 3 slots in red, 1 slot in blue, and 2 slots in yellow. So this is our compatibility, and what that means is it wants us to equip that many of each of those colors. So we're going to do that. We're going to go over here and equip our 3 red nodes first. So now you see how we've got efficiency. So what this means is as of right now, without equipping anything else, we will only get 50% of the benefits we have just equipped. So we've equipped a few things. We've gotten our weapon damage up, and our crit chance up, as well as the secondary effect of 4.1% defense. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to equip the next blue node, which is going to bring us up to 66.6%. And if we equipped our last 2 nodes, we are now receiving 100% benefits from these nodes. And that is where you always want to be. Each master is different, so if I come over here and click on someone else, see how I have the same node page, but it is giving me 89% because I have 1 too many red nodes equipped and 1 too few yellow nodes equipped. So we're going to come over here, we're going to click this right here, and this is going to be a drop down to our second master node page. Now you have 2 of these for every account that you have, and you can only equip the same nodes in 1 rune page. So you will have to get duplicate nodes if you want to be able to use the same ones twice. But here we've got just enough to fill out another page. And there we go, we're back up to 100%. But see, this time we had to equip 3 yellow instead of 3 red. So now let's talk about how these things affect us. So we're going to come back over here to this master, and we're going to click on the top button, Details. Now right in here, we're going to unequip everything, and we're just going to go through each one of these individually. So if you see over here, on the far left, you've got Survival, followed by Weapon, Skills, and Usability. Now, all of these nodes that we have here are going to affect these stats in different ways. So we're going to start here simply with the weapon damage. So we're going to equip it. You see, our weapon damage directly increased, and if you hover over it, it's going to tell us exactly what this does. So it says, damage dealt with weapon attacks cannot exceed ×2 of basic weapon attack. That's pretty straightforward. You just add to your weapon damage, and your weapon now hits harder. Now you also see, when we unequipped it, our defense goes down. Well, that's because all nodes give defense. Now, it's supposed to be giving us 5% increase, but it's given us a little bit less because we're only receiving a 16.6% increase from this. So instead of getting the full 5%, we're only getting like 1 point something. It's not a lot. It's not what we want to be, and we definitely want to make sure we get up to that 100% efficiency. So we're going to equip the same rune again. And this is going to increase our weapon damage and our defense one more time. Now this is one that a lot of people wanted me to talk about, is the critical chance. So when I equip this offense critical chance node, it is not going to increase my critical strike damage, only my critical strike chance, directly related to how much it's giving me. So it's going to give me 10.1% crit chance increase. So if I equip it, you see it does exactly that. It gives me exactly what it says it's going to give me. Now, I know right now it sounds like, oh, well, didn't you just say, hey, this is only going to give us 50% of the increase? And yes, that is true. It is only going to give us 50% of the increase if we go into a game. It will directly show how we've been upgraded, but in-game you will only be getting 50% of those stats. It is a little weird and unintuitive, and I wish it would reflect here so you could see exactly what's going on, but that is not the case. So we're going to go over to our next node in blue, and that just increases our defense and our defense. So if we unequipped it and then re-equipped it, you see that we get direct increases to our defense. We're going to do the same thing for the yellow nodes. and now we have 100% efficiency. So we'll just go through some of these areas and just kind of look over what each of these means. We're going to start with survival, the first one being health. This is how much health each of your masters has. Each master has a different amount of health based on what type of class they fill. The next one is tag out healing. When you have your second master that you'll have equipped in all of the different content, while they're tagged out, they will be receiving this amount of health every second while they're unequipped. The next is defense. The way this works is a little different. Instead of just getting a flat defense increase by 103, it is going to turn that into a percentage. So instead of just taking 103 damage less, we're taking 50% less damage, and that will be increased based on the heroes. Some have higher starting points than others, some have lower starting points, such as this master right here. She has a lower defense because she is a marksman type character. The next is CC reduction. That means however high this number is, it will reduce the amount of crowd control you have. So if you're CC'd for 2 seconds and you have CC reduction, it will lower that from 2 seconds to however high you've increased this. Stamina is how much stamina you have, how many times you can jump and roll before you run out of stamina. And that can be increased. It's not very useful in my opinion, but hey, it's too early to really tell if stamina is going to be the big thing. The next one is stamina per second. While you are playing the game, you are gaining passive stamina, and you can see what that number is here. All heroes seem to start at 5, and increasing it is just kind of whatever. Stamina recovery when struck, so every time you're hit, you'll receive stamina, but you can see here we have 0 stamina when struck, and that is the same across the board. The last one on survival is skill damage reduction. So ratio of skill damage received. So skill damage and weapon damage are two different things. Your defense is still going to be reducing damage, but you'll also be reducing damage again by how much you're hit with skills. So the next category is weapon, and this category is super important for our damage dealing heroes that primarily focus on their weapon, because there are two different types of damage dealers, one being weapon damage heroes, others being more skill-based heroes. So this one, weapon damage, is, we already talked about it a little bit, but it just increases the amount of damage every time you hit someone. Defense penetration, this one is an interesting topic because a lot of people don't quite understand how it works. So we're going to hover over it and we're just going to read it. Ratio of penetrating target's defense when dealing weapon damage. So as we talked about earlier, is over here I have 50% damage reduction. But now if I come over here and I increase this, it will then directly subtract from 50. So if I have 2% defense penetration and they have 50% damage reduction, I will subtract 2, and then they will only have 48% damage reduction. The next is critical strike chance, which is pretty self-explanatory. It directly affects how often you crit. So every time you attack, you have a percentage chance to do critical damage. Right now, I only have a 15.1% chance of doing a critical hit, which is, it is what it is. Some heroes do have a higher crit chance, so some heroes are definitely worth investing crit nodes into so you can get that even higher. The critical strike damage is the ratio of damage that you deal when you crit. Right now my critical damage is 150% of the normal attack, so it would take my weapon damage and then basically give it 50% more, because that's what it means by 150. So it's going to do 100% of the normal damage, and then it's going to add 50% onto that, making it 150 in total. The next is augment scaling. So a lot of people ask, what does it mean by atonement scaling? Damage ratio bonus when attacking with a superior atonement. So we'll talk about this real quick. So we're going to come over here to information. You see how my atonement is kinetic? So the way this works, and I'm going to go to a very specific page real quick. We're going to come over to guide, and there is a nice easy chart right here that is going to explain exactly how atonements work. there are 3 different atonements, the red, green, and blue. And it's a rock, paper, scissors. So you can see right here, I have 15% damage against Helix atoned targets. So red beats green, but loses to blue. Green beats blue, but loses to red, and then same for green. Green beats one, but loses to another. And that's basically what that's going to mean. So each individual master has different atonements. So she's got a kinetic atonement, but this guy has Helix atonement. So that means he would take reduced damage from me, but do increase damage to myself if I was playing this master. And if you come over here, we have the same, so we do nothing to each other, and vice versa. So you just kind of look around, find heroes that have a decent give and flow. You don't want to want to try and have at least 2 different types of atonements covered when you do select your masters. That's not a requirement, but if you do want to maximize your damage on enemies, that is the way to go. So we're going to come back up to our details and finish off the weapons. So lifesteal, every time you deal damage with your weapon, you would receive health back. This is based on a percentage, so it can only go up to 40%. So if I was to attack with this weapon, and instead of getting back 700 health, I would only be getting 40% of that. Now, overheat limit is a little bit different. So the way overheat works in this game is when you are attacking with your weapon, you cannot just hold down your attacks forever. Eventually, your weapon will overheat and it will need to cool down. I do not think there are overheat limit increases for runes, but I have not really checked, so that could be a thing. But it is something that everybody starts with 1000, and every time you attack, that overheat bar will go up, and we will explain that in a more in-depth video at a later date. Alright, so the next category is, the longest category, is our skills. So the way this works is, like I mentioned earlier, there are some types of masters that are good at weapon damage, and there are some masters that are good at skill damage. So the way this directly works is, think of this as like your ability power, like your magic, your direct increase on your skill scaling. So if we look over here, you can see that our strength cannot exceed 2000, and right now we only have 24, because this hero is more of a weapon damage type hero, and her skills are more for utility and using them in a different way than just raw damage. So if we go down here, skill penetration works the same way as defense pen. It is going to go through our opponent's defense on their percentage with our skills. So we can have defense penetration on our weapon, and we will hit and penetrate with that. But if we have skill penetration, we will penetrate with this instead, depending on what you're attacking with. So if you're left clicking, it will be defense penetration. If you're using skills, it will be skill penetration. The next one is skill crit chance. So just like with our weapons, our skills can crit, but they can only crit when you're using the skill. Same as with the defense penetration. If you're using the skill, this is the stat you want to increase. If you're using a weapon, you want to increase your crit strike chance with your weapon instead of under skills. The skill crit damage is, as said before, this is going to be our direct increase on our crit damage. So right now we would receive 150% increased damage, so we would do 24 plus 50% for our skills. Skill vamp is basically, it is lifesteal, but for skills. So if you increase this, every time you hit somebody with a skill, you will increase your health. So cooldown reduction is going to reduce the amount of time it takes for your spells to come off of cooldown. So if you put points into this, you will have faster skill uses. The next one is mana. All heroes, all masters come with the exact same mana, which is 1000. And you can work on that as you see fit with your runes. Some heroes do not use mana, like this guy right here, he uses will instead. It does have a different property set to it. Some use rage, others use mana. It's just you've got to look at each master and figure out exactly which type of resource they have. The last one last two, excuse me, mana per second, which is how much mana you are getting for the master that is on the battlefield at the moment. So you'll be receiving 5 mana per second with whichever master you have equipped. The next one is the recover mana during tag out. So whichever hero you have on your second slot that is not equipped will be receiving more mana because they're currently unequipped. So it is a good way to swap out, get some mana back, and then swap back to them later once they've received at least a decent amount of mana. So the very last column is usability, and this is more of your utility-based things. So you've got your movement speed, which is it's how fast you move in the game. This can cap out at 160%, and it will make you just move quicker. You can receive buffs in the game. There are certain skills that give increases to movement speed, and it'll directly affect this number, but it will not ever be able to exceed 160. The next one is tag cooldown, so that allows you to swap between your heroes quicker. You can increase this, or decrease this rather, but you cannot go past 5 seconds. But if you do decrease this, it is pretty nice to be able to swap back and forth between certain masters quickly, but it is personal preference, and certain skills and builds will work better for that. Item pickup range. This is a PvE based item, so maximum auto item pickup range for your master. This is something that doesn't really matter too much because the only way to auto pick up items is to buy a thing in the cash shop, and it only lasts for a specific amount of time. And respawn reduction decreases your respawn cooldown in PvP matches. I'm not particularly sure if there is a way to increase or decrease this, with the exception of the longer a game goes on, the less time you'll be on the battlefield. So if you die later in a game, you will be dead longer. Well, alright guys, I think that's just going to about do it for this video. It is pushing a little bit long, so I will have another video coming up here in a bit about how to find and where to get the nodes that you're going to want to be using. So stay tuned for that. But I appreciate you guys for leaving all the wonderful feedback you did on the Reddit. That is amazing, and I will continue to make these videos from the people that suggested things. So anyways, don't forget, like and subscribe so that I know that you guys want to see this kind of content, and I will see you in the next video.